Want to play a build that deletes juiced maps with one button? That one taps bosses? Kills Ubergesicht with ease? That nukes the entire screen in bullshit and deletes your PC? That does it all while on a low budget? Of course you do, you dirty dog. This build does it all, and it does so while being satisfying and fun as hell to play. So what is this amazing build then? It's the Fissures Warrior, not the kind of fissures you have in your anus, but rather molten fissures. You'll see soon how we utilize these to the fullest. But first, big shout out to Requip for coming up with the build and optimizing it. While there's still a lot of damage left to get via better gear, this version of the build should be perfect for all of you out there that can't play 24/7 or refuse to swipe for gear. And with that said, let's see how the build works. For starters, we have our molten fissures. This is where the bulk of our damage comes from. Problem is, how the hell do we spawn them? Because I can't for one see anything resembling fissures on the skill bar. And while it could be due to the Riley Reid gangbang running on my second monitor, that's simply distracting me. It's in fact not. There is no fissure on our skill bar. Instead, we're using our Leap Slam in combination with the Crater Gem to create these lovely molten fissures, along with spawning fissures from our Earth Shatter and Forge Hammer on bosses. And what you need to know about these fissures is that they, 1, deal a buttload of damage, and 2, we can make them repeat themselves using slam skills. That's why you see Earth Shatter spawning molten fissures. It's a slam skill, and you're slamming it into the molten fissures, making them repeat. On top of that though, we're of course rocking Hammer of the Gods for clearing out annoying ass elites and bosses. And finally, Shockwave Totem for some additional defense and kiting capabilities, along with our Herald combination, Herald of Blood and Plague, which we use not only to delete packs of enemies, but also to stay alive. And in case this combination blows up your PC, then here's what it looks like not using it. Now to see how the combo is working, let's check out the gems and you'll understand. But first let's see what's going on with our main skills. So, Forge Hammer. This thing lodges a hammer in the ground, which does, well, nothing really. But if we combine this with using a war cry, then it'll create molten fissures, which we can make repeat via Earth Shatter. To buff its damage, we're rocking Fist of War 3, gaining double its effect once every 14 seconds, and we're only going to use it once on bosses, allowing us to gain its full bonus. We then have Ambrosia, allowing us to gain a shit ton of lightning damage, which has an added bonus. It shocks enemies, granting us an additional 20% damage. We combine this with Elemental Armament and Concentrated Area for some lovely damage, and finalize it with Fire Exposure to gain fire penetration. For our Hammer of the Gods, the same goes here. We're only using it once every 14 seconds, mainly on bosses. Although if your gear is dogshit, then you may want to use it on rares as well. Other than that, Heavy Swing for damage, Heft for more damage, Rapid Attacks for even more damage, and Expanse for not damage. AOE, in fact, making sure we don't miss it. When it comes to our cries, we're rocking both Seismic Cry and Infernal Cry, and we'll need them to blow up not only the Forge Hammer, but also the Earth Shatters. For Seismic Cry, we buff it via tireless cooldown recovery and perpetual charge as to reduce its cooldown and allow for extra uses. Magnified effect is also important here, as you'll otherwise likely miss some of your cries. The same goes for Infernal Cry, but we're also rocking it for Rage Generation on bosses. To reset them, you'll have Endurance Generation via Earth Shatter as you break armor, allowing for additional uses, which is especially important when mapping if you need a break from just holding down Leap Slam and want to press some other buttons as well. To gain some additional damage, we're using Branching Fissures for additional fissures, Close Combat for damage, Rage 3 as our main rage generator, and Rapid Attacks to gain some attack speed. We'll generally go hard on attack speed in this build. For our Leap Slam, this is both our main mobility skill and way of easily clearing maps. This is due to Crater, spawning a shit ton of fissures. We're also going to have it spawn bleeding, which will allow us to easily use Herald of Blood. We then want more fissures, of course, along with rapid attacks as it makes the leap animation faster, and aftershock for, well, more aftershocks, and in turn more slams and fissures. For the Herald of Blood, we're using this not only for extra clear, but we're also using it to leech health, which is insanely important if we want to stay alive. For more AoE, grab Magnified Area. We're then using a cool tech here, allowing for the chaining of explosions between our two heralds. Alright? And how the hell does that work? Well, shit. Herald of Blood requires bleeding and deals physical explosions, and Herald of Plague requires poisons, to well spread poisons. For Herald of Blood, you then have poison that poisons, plague that turns some of it into physical and allowing it to bleed. When enemies are bleeding, they can trigger Herald of Blood explosions. And then we have Herald of Plague, which spreads poison like AIDS. Or in short, two heralds good cuz of big explosions. And we also have Shockwave Totem, mainly being used if you're running too difficult maps, so you can kite enemies. Alright, so that's the gems complete. Let's check out the gear now, shall we? Here there's really nothing spectacular going on, which is great as it allows you to easily get the build online. We will be using two weapon sets here, one for bossing and one for mapping. This is to save you both a headache and a bunch of currency. Because for mapping, you can just slap on whatever with a bunch of attack speed and you'll clear insanely fast. Combine that with Onslaught and you'll get even more attack speed. For bossing, however, it's all about that big dick damage. Skill ranks and as much physical and fire damage as possible to one-tap the bosses. That's what we're after here. When it comes to the other gear, the priority is as follows. Flat damage and skill ranks wherever you can find them, namely gloves, amulet, and rings, because this in combination with your weapon is where all of your damage comes from. And as to not fucking die, your main sources of defense are max life, resistances, and armor. So focus on getting your resistances capped, then you get as much max life as possible, and finally, fill out with armor. And finally, of course, get a few attributes so you can actually use your skills and gear. That's pretty useful. Other than that, though, nothing spectacular. You'll then anoint Sundering, granting us a bunch of crit damage. All right, friends, so that's the gear. Let's see what's going on in the passive tree department, and we'll finish this bad boy off with some gameplay and how to combo your skills. And starting us off, we have some banger ascendancy nodes. Mind you though, nothing mandatory, and you could absolutely run this build as a warbringer or the smithing guy. We do, however, get a nice bonus to our passive skills here, along with 15% more max life, which is pretty massive for our defense, along with either 50% more armor here if you need the defense, or 25% chance to gain aftershocks. Personally, I'd go for the armor when mapping, as you should already be tapping everything, and then swap to aftershocks when nuking pinnacle bosses. But you do you, my man. Or woman, but probably man. Next, we got to grab us some additional damage along with a buttload of armor with some healing. Then keep going for all of these damage passives until you get to this green bullshit right here. This means the weapon skill set that you're using for killing bosses. The red one, on the other hand, that's your mapping skill set, because we want all the damage we can find for bosses, and here are some lovely crit nodes. After that, we work out way down to some extra damage nodes and the Prism Guard nodes, which is why armor is actually pretty fucking good this season. It now works against elemental damage, and due to this, you want as much armor as possible. Blood magic is how we sustain our mana. That is, we don't, because we turn it into life costs instead, and rely on the healing from our leech, as well as some health regeneration. And finally, some additional fissures and armor for our mapping weapon set, and big damage for our bossing weapon set. Once we're done here, we continue onwards, grabbing some damage nodes and some max life nodes along the way. Over here we'll find an additional crit cluster for bossing, along with Made to Last, healing us via recouping, and a bunch of extra aftershocks. Up here we find a bunch of strength nodes, some armor, and this cluster right here, Nimble Strength, which will be a main source of accuracy. And finally, we go all the way down here to grab some final armor, armor break, defense, and attack speed. Pretty nice. Now when it comes to the jewels, because you didn't think we were done yet, did you? You have a buttload of different options. But grabbing a gem with Rage on melee hit will allow you to keep Rage up at all times, in turn granting you 30% multiplicative damage. Other than that though, you basically grab any useful jewels you can find. Crit chance, crit damage, attack damage, or anything you need for yellow jewels, and if you can afford some unique ones, then a good heart of the Well Diamond with extra damage as elemental or chaos damage is fine as hell. I'll list some options for you in the planner. And now finally, my friends, we're done with this shit. Let's see how to play the build, and you'll be well on your way to clear some juiced maps after that. When mapping, it's easy peasy, but you can choose to play the build differently depending on your playstyle. Mainly though for speed, you want to leap as much as possible. Leap straight into the enemies and trigger your fissures, and everything should blow up. For rough elites, you can drop a hammer of the gods and just keep running, and they should die. If you want to play more conservatively though, perhaps because you're playing hardcore or some other stupid shit, then you can spam earth shatters instead. Spamming them will break enemy armor, which will generate endurance charges. You can then use these endurance charges to use your cries, which will make the earth shatter fissures explode. It's a solid way to clear as well for sure. And if you find yourself dying too much, then you can drop down your shockwave totem, slowing enemies and dealing additional damage, but that's entirely up to you. Alright? And then bossing and pulling off the wombo combo. Before the fight starts, you should preparing some earth shatters. Then simply drop a forge hammer, use a cry, and keep spamming earth shatters, alternating in your cries to have them explode. This will allow you to repeat the fissure over and over again for insane amounts of damage. And if you're fighting a pinnacle boss, then chances are you may be able to stun the boss before he dies, in which case you can drop a hammer of the gods to finish him off. And with that, we're done. Drop a sub, check out Requip, and I'll see you in the next one.
So long, gay boys!